Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show at 8:46, Richard and Garry are here. We've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking at the Brokenwire potential hack for charging EV vehicles, a bit about Okta as well. We'll talk about Microsoft's graveyard of products that someone's got a great site for that we should see if any of your favourites have ended up in there. Of course, Windows 11 big update came to beta this week, and we'll be talking about what's in that and what that means for the next rollout of Windows 11 and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard and Garry. Garry and Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And glad to have you back, Garry. Feeling better
Really
as well.
pleased to be back.
just pleased to be here. You get to our age, you're just pleased to be here, aren't you?
I definitely am. After the last week, I'm definitely pleased to be here.
Yeah, well, that's good. Because there's been plenty going on in the last week. It's also the Microsoft MVP Summit this week as well. So there's interesting sessions going on around there, various time zones. I'm not quite sure how they're doing it. But yeah, they've got various time zones going along that. So yeah, lots going on at the moment. We've got lots of things I want to talk about. We've got Windows 11 22 H2 has hit the beta channel. So I've got a feeling we may know where we are with that. So we can talk about that later. And we've got cumulative upgrades for dev, for release preview, and for release of Windows, and some other things we want to talk about. But Richard, one thing you wanted to start off with, something called Brokenwire.
Yeah, so this is some research that's gained a bit of traction recently. I don't know if Gary's familiar with it. It's to do with the CCS charging standard for EVs. Mm-hmm. And what it is, it's basically it interrupts the communication channel because when EVs are doing, I think, DC fast charging, they're also exchanging information about the maximum current and how charged the car is. Really useful stuff. And I think some researchers have discovered that if they basically blast that with what is effectively some RF broadcast, then they're being quite cagey on what they're actually blasting it with. But it's not that high powered. They can interrupt that flow of communication, and what that does effectively is stop or makes the EV and the charger think, oh, here's a funny thing, we'll stop charging, which is irritating really for drivers if they're hit by it, but more serious if, for example, you depend on your vehicle being fully charged. You plug it in, you expect it to be charged, and you return, it's not charged. That's a pain. So I mean, I guess really, Garry, as our EV expert, is this a real thing?
And it's
and is it anything people should be concerned about? Is this a example of miscreants and people who might do better elsewhere with their time to turn their attention to other bits of the infrastructure?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think all credit to the Brokenwire people because they basically they removed the attack details very quickly to allow people to work on them and try and figure it out. But I mean, CCS is such a hybrid of technologies. I mean, basically this comms is actually using something we're pretty familiar with on the show, power line communications.
Yeah, it's home plug, isn't it? Yeah,
home plug. It's basically a home plug type setup. So it's home plug green, which was one of the latter versions of home plug, and home plug's actually obviously vulnerable to this sort of interference as well. I mean, it's not unusual, and this may explain why people do sometimes get dodgy charge sessions on CCS if there's stuff going on electromagnetically nearby. And you never quite know what can be happening, radar transmissions or whatever. That charges sometimes fail. I mean, some charging sometimes does fail for no apparent good reason. So yeah, this might be related to that, and perhaps if they do put some better RF shielding on these things, it may actually help avoid some of the issues that people have anyway. But yeah, it's definitely a proper thing. It's pretty easy to do from what I understand. I just hope the manufacturers get out there and get it fixed. I mean, I don't hold out an awful lot of hope for them to get into deployments now, because fixing CCS charges doesn't seem to happen very rapidly at all anyway. There's certainly some broken CCS charges have been broken for over a year now. and also the manufacturers don't seem very keen to roll out new kit to the end users, well, the charge point operators who obviously buy kit from these manufacturers. But one would hope, because this is such a big thing, that people will fix it in some way or other. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this goes forward.
Cool.
Yeah, and I suppose it's digital interference and things like that. It's just another thing to have to worry about, isn't it? With the,
I think it's worthwhile again just making it clear it doesn't damage the vehicles or the infrastructure.
No,
it purely. I mean, it's taking advantage, I think, of a safety feature whereby if the vehicle or if the EV or the infrastructure thinks, oh, there's something odd here, they just abort the charge, which is it's
a very wise thing to do.
Yeah, it's a fail safe basically.
It is. I mean, and the name of it is basically from that fail safe, because this whole fail safe is based on the idea of if the wire broke, you don't want to carry on charging because you don't know what's going on. You don't know, because basically this whole system is set up so, because DC can heat the battery up very quickly, you don't want that battery overheating, so the car needs to be able to tell the CCS charger to stop or slow down how much power it's putting into the battery. If you just bunged in the full rate you can get from some of these DCS chargers, you'd have very swollen cars.
Yeah, I suppose this is the best case in terms of it. The worst case would be if it set the battery on fire. Cutting it off is the best case if it's going to be. Yeah,
this is. I mean, if you're going to have a hack and a fail, this is probably the best case. Although obviously not getting charged, it would be right. And it's hard enough some days to get charged anyway these days with some of the failures in the infrastructure. I have to say I mean, generally the infrastructure is improving. There's so many new hubs opening. I keep seeing a new hub opening virtually every day at the moment. So it's really good to see that. I mean, it's Exeter Services has just opened up with its massive number of grid serve chargers, which is brilliant to see, because that's been a black hole for charging, and that's happening all the time. 10-20 chargers at a site going in almost daily, so that's really good to see. But some of the old chargers just haven't been maintained, and some of that was because it was a land grab of money. There was money out there to install chargers, there wasn't money to maintain them, particularly with the council installed chargers. The council went for the capital budgets and got their nice bit of funding to do that, but they haven't got the money to actually maintain them. And the manufacturers or the operators haven't been that interested in maintaining them either. So they're a bit of a white elephant, some of those, but hopefully that will improve over time. And there is this week the government actually published its white paper on the road forward for chargers and infrastructure, and talking about some governments in there and some requirements that charger operators have got to meet, including some uptime requirements and maintenance requirements. So that would be interesting to see if that actually gets into law and how that affects things.
Yeah, well, yeah. See what difference it makes. How you finding your car now? I've had a bit now. Feeling better.
I haven't had much chance to drive it. Obviously, we're not being too well, but when I have been driving, I've been thoroughly enjoying driving. And as we saw the other week, it charges really quickly, too quickly. Most of the time, I go stop for a cup of coffee, go to charge it, and it's fully charged before I finish my cup of coffee, which is great, but also means I'm then tying that charger up for someone else who wants to come along and use it when I don't really need to be. So it's a bit of a trade-off there, which is why I have Need to Charge on my car, which is a website where you can just ask me to move my car if you want to get on the charger.
Etiquette, charging etiquette.
Charging etiquette's massive. Actually, we ought to have someone on the show to talk about that at some point, because it's a really something.
I mean, that's one of my pet peeves at a petrol station, when you see someone fill up, you're waiting to fill up, and you see someone there and they're faffing around in the car for 10 minutes after they've actually filled up. You say, move, come on.
Well, it's even worse on chargers, as you can imagine.
So charging etiquette is a big thing, I suppose. And I suppose at the moment as well, it's probably a kind of nice, almost like a bit of a club thing, isn't it, that you're in the EV club, so you're probably okay. But as more and more people get it, the more and more the etiquette level will drop.
I often have that conversation with my fellow early adopters, that we're in this golden period at the moment. We've got enough chargers. There's a lot of chargers going in. People you can usually get a charge if you're out and about, and the costs aren't too high, and there's not too many people about, and the people about who are using them are quite nice. But that won't always be the case.
Now there's another not directly related to us, but I did want to pick your brains, Richard, if you'd seen this, about the Octa Octa Hack. So we talk about we're all talking about two-factor authentication, and I've got it on my Microsoft accounts, not necessarily with Okta, but I've used it in other areas. But that isn't. Did you hear anything about this?
Yeah, this is the Okta thing. It's an interesting one. I mean, Okta are an authentication provider. They specialize in identity. So you have like one place for identity, and I mean, I wouldn't say we've kind of bought into, but one always thinks that multi-factor authentication cures all things, but it clearly doesn't. If this can happen, and the situation is, I believe, and Gary, correct me if I've got the wrong end of the stick here, but as I understand it, a third-party contractor was able, had authentication. This was picked up by a hacker group called, I think they're called Lapsus, I think is their name. They're not ransomware. They're I think they're more into extortion, aren't they? And so they posted some screenshots taken back in January showing what looked for all the world like they were in Okta systems. You could see some third-party things there. You could see their WordPress client. You could see Cloudflare information. You could see various things that, running at a level you shouldn't have been able to get to. And that's caused all kinds of ructions. To be honest, I would say the Okta thing is bad. I don't believe that many users were actually affected. What I found most disturbing about this whole situation with this breach was how Okta handled the communication, because they really went very quiet for quite a long time. And because so many people depend on Okta for identity and authentication, that meant there was a lot of speculation that happened in the period while they were quiet. And I know they have to stay quiet until they worked out what's happened. But yeah, for me, it was the communication around it that I actually found the most concerning about the whole thing. Obviously, it's bad that there's been a breach, and lots of people were resetting passwords around passwords and MFAs around the around the internet. That goes without saying, but it's more the communication that worried me. And obviously, it did demonstrate that you can be as dependent as you can apply as many levels of authentication as you want. You're still at the whim of if some credentials get out in the wild, then it's no guarantee that that you're completely secure.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft were affected in a way where it was kind of related to this. Yeah. I mean,
Microsoft didn't they have was it the source code for parts of Bing and Cortana got lifted? I think.
Yeah.
Did anyone notice?
Oh, the Cortana one.
But yeah, I mean, I think the Okta thing is bad, and I think also, it also the concern there was that there was also some Cloudflare details there, and Cloudflare, to their credit, were on it straight away. They publicized many updates on what they were doing, because obviously if this had led to a compromise of Cloudflare, that's a whole different ballgame, because Cloudflare is what a large chunk of the internet runs on. You probably don't realize it as an end user, but when Cloudflare goes down, the internet seems to go down as well. So that was quite considerable. Again, Cloudflare, to their credit, were on it very, very quickly, were putting out reassuring messages, and were explaining what had happened from their standpoint. But I think the quietness from Okta was what worried me here.
Yeah, it just shows you why you got to be on your guard. And we talked, I think it was last week when Garry wasn't here, about home automation systems and them going offline and things like that. And that was from, we were talking about something like a D-Link where they pull the plug. But if you have a home automation system that you've got protected by some third party as well, then you can be at risk as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, and you just got to kind of be aware. You've got to almost accept that there's risk. Well, you have to accept there's a risk. You've no choice of. You accept there's a risk and just do what you can to mitigate it.
For sure, yes. I mean, and yet you have to keep in mind that you're making yourself dependent on third-party tools over which you may have no control. So as you say, you've got to balance your own risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, interesting week for security researchers. I think there was even there's a patch for Chrome and Microsoft Edge, wasn't there, that came out as a sort of an emergency patch this week as well.
Yes, all those, and also I think Atlassian had some issues too with Confluence and Bitbucket as well. I think and that I think went right back to a Java vulnerability in Hazelcast. So there's a it's a real third party fun and games this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on a more interesting note, a brighter note perhaps for us anyway, we had a Windows 11 insider build last week, 22581, hit the dev channel with no new features as such, but it was a pretty significant update this time.
Weren't we talking about this last week?
We were, yes, before they released it, yes.
Sure enough, it's happened. Yes, so this is the one where they've pushed out the 22581 to beta and to dev, which means you've got this short period of time where if you want, you can switch from the dev channel to the beta channel without having to nuke your PC from orbit. Yeah,
which it's Gary. This is a fairly short window and doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't happen at all very often. Then, and it's quite deliberate that they want to give people that chance to be able to switch. So yeah, if you want to switch channels, do it now because you're not going to have long to do it.
Yeah. And
personally, I'd rather nuke my machine. I would prefer to nuke my PC from orbit and start again. I really would.
Yeah, there is that, and I've got this decision. You know, what I've got one on. I have one device on beta, one on dev, and I've got the chance now to switch them around. But which way around do I want to do it? I'm not quite sure. So I've left them as they are at the moment. But so they're on the same. But yeah, this is going to diverge. And I think the reason this is made possible is the fact that now the beta channel has been switched to 22H2, and Microsoft haven't explicitly said this, but it does say that in the about box. And I think so. What we're seeing, I think, here in the in the beta channel is effectively what will be the update that comes out later this year. Microsoft have already said that Windows 11 will have one major update a year, and I think this is it. The things that are included in this beta is perhaps what will hit release. And of course, what they changed the descriptions of the channels slightly a few months ago, so that was where dev was things that they're working on, beta is things that they're working on but intending to release, and then release preview was sort of get ready for release. So all the features that were in dev have switched over to beta. I'm guessing now are the ones that they intend to release. So like the collapsed taskbar, folders on the start menu, all those kind of things are in the beta version. And I'm guessing now that beta channel will stay on this build 225 and around this 22581 range until some point in the summer, and then release preview will get it, and then it will go to live. And in the meantime, the dev channel, devices on the dev channel, will then go off on a different tangent, and that will be effectively things to test for 23H2, and that will go over the next 6-8 months or whatever until that hits the channel and that thing happens again. So that's my theory of it, and pretty much how it worked last year, although they surprised us with the Windows 11 branding, but it was kind of how it worked last year. So have you? I don't think, Gary, you haven't got any of the Windows 11 builds running, have you, at the moment? Never mind on the feature channel.
Well, I've got some VMs running with it in, so yeah. I do have it, and I use play with it quite a bit, but not on any of my devices here. I might risk it on one of them soon.
I actually this beta build actually is looking really. It's a nice update, I think, especially for the tablet. There's a lot of tablet features in there. The folder start menu thing, I do really like just having being able to organize in folders. It makes it's optimized my start menu quite well on my Surface laptop, so I think that's quite nice. And there's quite a lot of nice subtle changes in this in this build. So if you were on beta and hadn't tried dev, actually there's quite a lot of changes to test. If you were already on dev, then there's not a huge amount of changes within this build. There was just really fixes. But yeah, I quite like these builds now. So these beta builds are quite good. So I don't know how long we'll get on this simultaneous beta and dev. I think it was about a month or so last time this happened, which was pre Windows 11 or just before Windows 11 was released. So yes, it could be that time. And there's just been a bug bash as well. So I don't know, what speculation on when do you think this would hit release preview and then hit release, Richard?
Release preview. Well, I mean, I guess release is going to be. It'll be towards the end of the year, won't it? Probably October time would be when it gets released. So release preview, I'd think maybe August.
Yeah, I think that follow similar patterns. You're probably right, August, and then release end of September into October, ready for October release to Windows update for. And I'm guessing all Windows 11 devices. It won't be a phased approach, perhaps like it has in the past, because if you're on Windows 11, then you should be on a supported OS. Unlike Windows 10, where everything had Windows 10. Windows 10 was everywhere, wasn't it? And then Windows 11 was that controlled group of devices. So we'll see. But I'm guessing that will go out a bit quicker. Do you think one update a year is proving to be the best way forward?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's. I mean, the thing is, it's not one update per year, really, is it? Because they are going to, or they have been just adding more things as time goes by to Windows 11. So it's. I mean, obviously, one major OS update a year, yeah, it's fine, but I'm not sure how much people would actually notice it, bearing in mind the way things are being added to Windows 11 just as via normal updates anyway. So.
Yeah, you're right. They could release some of the, like the start menu or whatever. I'm sure they could release that independently if they wanted to. It's whether for marketing reasons they want to keep a whole batch of these features together and release it as the 2022 version of Windows 11, and then next year the 2023 version, or if they let all the little features out one at a time, then it hasn't quite got that big impact. But from a marketing push anyway. Although perhaps gone are those days where they went for the big creator updates where they really made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, well, I guess the danger there was if they announced things that they then didn't deliver. I'm thinking about sets would be a great example of a thing that was announced with much fanfare and then never turned up.
Yeah, and actually talking about, I've seen a few pictures of the tabbed file explorer. So my guess is that maybe once the dev channel goes off onto the higher builds, and maybe that will be the next thing that we see in the dev channel as for stuff they're working on, possibly for next year now. But not sets. I don't think we'll never see sets back again. It's funny that, isn't it? I actually quite liked it at the time, but I remember discussing it on the show, saying they're really going to have a hard time explaining this to people, and it worked from a technology point of view. I think it was more the fact that trying to explain the concept was perhaps a step too far, and they just backed away from it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And talking of things Microsoft have backed away on, this isn't a new thing, but I did want to share this with you. Have you heard of a site called Killed by Microsoft?
Oh, I have indeed. Yes, that's quite funny.
Yeah. So maybe I can share this one.
Because obviously we're all familiar with Killed by Google, and yes, now it's someone said, well, you know what, Microsoft kills a lot of things as well, and sure enough, there's a lot in there.
Yeah. So it says it's killed by Microsoft.info, and it's a great little graveyard, and in one of the pictures is a little guillotine. Perhaps that's because it's a future date of things that Microsoft have worked on and killed off. And as soon as I opened it, it was a bit of pain. When I can feel a bit of pain in my heart. The Microsoft bands on there, obviously our favorite Windows Media Center's on there, but Windows Phone's on there. Windows 10 IoT Core, something we talked about a few weeks ago. Actually, what happened with that? Groove Music's on there. Codeplex.
Connect's on there.
Yeah. Map Points. So there are favorites. Windows Home Server. Yeah. In fact, one of them after they killed off, I forgot. TechNet is on there. Which TechNet was one of my. I always really liked that. So I forgot that they got rid of that. But just to kind of assume that would always be there. But yeah, Expression Studio. Messages on there as you go back in time. Source Safe. A lot of these things. Gary would have been using there. Visual Source Safe. I don't you ever use that, Gary?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Front Page.
Yeah, I don't really use that much, but
Yeah. I think we talked Java the other week. Java Virtual Machine.
All I'm saying is let's just take a few moments of silence for Microsoft Comic Chat, which died 23 years ago, and Bob.
Yeah, that's the Comic Chat. I remember using that. It was I remember it being quite fun, but it's not. It's something that would almost, you could see it being launched now, and the virtual reality things are.
It was incredibly ahead of its time, as a lot of things Microsoft do are almost too ahead of their time.
And they never stick with them.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things here I didn't remember, like iLoo, which I thought was an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't. It was a thing that they were working on. It was a portable toilet used at festivals with internet access. does sound like an April Fool's joke. We're a bit early for that, but it's this week, isn't it? Actually, I forgot about that. That's always a thing to avoid, and Visual Basic's on there as well. So
yeah, I mean, there's some of that that's a bit odd because Visual Basic. I mean, surely that's still. I mean,
yeah, it's still a thing.
It's still a thing, isn't it? I mean, there is Visual Basic. I guess was it .NET,
yeah,
whatever it is,
I still use it.
It's still there, isn't it? It's still around.
Yeah.
And, I think Microsoft Money. I mean, that went away, but hasn't it come back as like an Excel spreadsheet now?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Obviously for US people only, but.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting things on there, and the links will take you to a Wikipedia page as well, so you can find out. Windows Movie Maker. That's an interesting one. I think that's something that was killed off perhaps too soon now in these era of TikToks and everything else. They've almost brought it back with Clipchamp.
They have, and of course they've obviously, as we talked earlier, they've I think reacted to some of the massive negative feedback from Clipchamp by they've enabled the 1080p mode now in the free tier. Rather than just 480p, which I think was that was awful, really. So they've done that, although it's still a little galling to have an inbox app that has paid for tiers in it. Yeah,
exactly. So maybe that will be showing up on this screen at some point in the future. But quite a nice site, well maintained. So I thought that was quite interesting. But
yes, it's quite funny.
Yeah. So, but half the things on there I've either bought or used, more than half, in fact, and a lot of consumer stuff. Yeah, Gary, a lot of developer stuff's on there.
Well, I guess fairly soon we're going to have Internet Explorer appearing on there too, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are. How many? It was a few weeks now, isn't it?
I think it's like 3 months ago. I was reading that they've continued to sort of tweak the IE mode in Edge to have some more bits and pieces. So it's less painful. I think the key one is probably if you are using that one weird corporate intranet site that has to have Internet Explorer, then I think COM objects are quite important, and also the shared cookies between IE mode and Edge sessions also quite important too. So Microsoft has kept on tweaking it to try and urge people to move away from Internet Explorer and to the IE mode and Edge if they absolutely have to.
Yeah, unfortunately to say, I don't think I haven't come across any of the corporate stuff that needed IE mode for quite a while now. So I'm quite glad to see the back of that. To be honest, exactly. I do see it every now and again. Somebody goes and searches it out in Windows 10, but of course soon that will be no more.
Exactly. I mean, it is literally that one weird app, isn't it? You think, oh, okay, IE mode.
There's probably some home automation software somewhere that the config screen only works in Internet Explorer.
Well, you'll probably be snookered then, I guess, because I think IE mode in Edge, isn't that an enterprise only thing?
Yeah, because I think it's a group policy. Maybe you could do it through a policy editor. I'm not sure, to be honest. I remember seeing a group policy for it, but you might need the infrastructure to go with it for it to work. So you might be out of luck.
I guess if you need it at home, then you've got all kinds of other problems on your hands.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you can always fire up a Hyper-V image and get Windows XP on there, but or you could get Windows XP or Windows Whistler. Go for one of the old school ones.
If only there was a video showing all the versions.
Yeah, if only. Yeah.
What would that be like?
Yes, exactly. I also show you things like Neptune, Windows Neptune, which I've got a video of, as well as Whistler and some of the other products. It could actually make Microsoft killed by Microsoft, but I suppose they were killed off, but then Windows became into another version of Windows, so it's perhaps not why it's not on this list. But you could add in there sort of Microsoft Cairo technologies. At Longhorn, you could probably stick some of those in there, but they can't. I suppose they were never released and this list was things that was released. Remix 3D's on there, which that one didn't seem that long ago. Well, that was actually 2016. That came out.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I hadn't fully realised that they'd killed off Photosynth either. I mean, it'd gone quiet for a long time, but I hadn't realised that had gone too.
Yeah, and Photoset was a fantastic application as well. It's a shame that perhaps Microsoft needs to look at this list sometime and think, why is some stuff that was ahead of time? Certainly Photosynth kind of was. Or you could even argue that Windows Media Center and Windows Home Server, some of these technologies were ahead of time, and then they just don't manage to follow up on them.
I think it's a case of looking at it. You can see they've probably made the right calls because, if they were still trying to be a consumer-based company, then these are disastrous calls. However, as an enterprise company with Azure, I guess if we stop thinking of Microsoft as being the consumer company, so Media Center gone, Zune gone, Groove gone, makes sense if you're going to focus purely on the enterprise and Azure and be the service that hosts everything in the background. And they're making money hand over fist, so they're doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be too worried for them. It's just more devices to. In fact, I'll tell you what's not on here. It's Windows RT. I think they should have that on here.
Well, is that not still supported?
Whether it's no, it's not. Is it?
I think it might be.
Actually.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I thought it was. You could be right. Well, I've got two Windows RT devices over there on the shelf that running Windows.
Fire them up.
Yeah, well, they do fire up, no problem. And they've got the only version of Windows 8 with a proper start menu, because they had the one that had the Windows 9 start menu on there, which also I've got a video of. Funny you mentioned that. What else we've got? Oh, just on the insider stuff, as well as getting the beta and dev channels, we did get on release preview an update, which was 225.81.100. These were the servicing pipeline, and we've just had 225.81.200 testing the servicing pipeline. Those servicing pipelines are fantastic. The best tested product at Microsoft.
Dear, oh dear.
I do like those. But we also got...
You're just winding me up now, aren't you? Just winding me up.
We also got, I think it was on release preview, KB 5011563 for those keeping score at home, which was for the release preview, which actually has been released as the C update today as well. So
yes.
If you go to Windows Update, you can actually see that as an optional update, which I'm guessing that'll get pushed as a mandatory update next month.
Yes. I mean, I actually had a C update come down on my production Windows 11 machine today, but I didn't.
Yeah, mine. Yeah. But it was an optional. It didn't automatically install. I could select it from the list. Yep. But I'm guessing these get pushed out as mandatory updates next Patch Tuesday. These C updates.
Yeah, I guess so. Yes.
They become B updates or something like that. Yeah. So next month they'll have all these things, but there's some good fixes in there, like around remote desktop and some blue screening type things and some OneDrive type things. But not all fixes in the background. And you can now, is that high priority toast notifications simultaneous as well. That was the main feature change. And so that's, I guess that will hit everybody next month, and it's an optional update this month. And it was a release preview last week, I think. So you can see the progress there, looks like to me that's the right way of releasing things. We did have the odd occasion where things skip release preview, but that hasn't been done in this case. Which was good to see. I also, if anybody is on the Insider preview channel and channels and wanted to change channels, now which you mentioned, which is now is a good time to do it. I have got a video on how to change channels. So if you can't remember, you just want to check your channel, and there's a little video on how to do that as well. And I think I had another video that I did last week. Oh yeah, how to free up disk space in Windows 11 as well. So it's amazing how quickly Windows can eat through disk space, but there's some of the tools that are built into Windows now are actually quite good at releasing that space back. So I have a little video on that I did last week.
Excellent.
Okay, now what else did we have?
There were some other bits and pieces. Did either you see the chap that did the GitHub issues printer using a Raspberry Pi?
No, I didn't see that.
It's one of the best uses I've seen, because I mean, many of us, okay, this is me, I have a number of Raspberry Pis in my drawer gathering dust from various projects I've begun and never finished.
Yeah, I've got them here somewhere.
I've got lots of them. And so what this guy did, I think his name is Andrew, and I've forgotten the surname, for which I apologize. But basically it's on Twitter and various places. I think I wrote a piece about it as well. And what he's done is he's taken, those point of sale printers, thermal printers in restaurants that pop out tickets and things.
Oh,
so what he's done is he's connected one to a Raspberry Pi, and then used used, I think he programs in PHP, so he's used an ESC POS printing library, used some web hooks to talk to GitHub, and so whenever a GitHub issue is raised on one of his repos, it spits out a ticket from the receipt printer, which I thought was brilliant. This is great, because that's
a great idea.
I mean, he's talked about adding QR codes and things, but I can think, obviously, if you're perhaps running a big repo, then maybe that would be a bad idea. But it did tickle me, because I've got so many projects of my own that I've not finished. I was just heartened to see a person spend 8 hours and make all this work.
That is a great idea. That would be great if I could hook that up to my ticket system over at work.
Exactly.
So when someone logs a ticket, I could take them a physical piece of paper, go, here's your ticket.
Exactly. It pops out. There we go. Done.
Yeah. Yes. And when you complete the ticket, they have to shred it. Now please shred it. That's a good idea, that, because I've got my little nano thing here with its light switch. That's light strip. I could do something with that. That's just one thing the Pi has been so great for, isn't it? That you can just throw projects in it, and there's a lot of libraries out there that really make it so that you can concentrate on the integration part of it, rather than having to learn how to program a thermal printer, kitchen printer through USB. You can get the library and concentrate on the actual bits that you want to do, the fun bits of it.
Yeah. The guy's now, I've just looked up, and I'm going to apologize for my awful pronunciation now. It's Andrew Smelian, I think his name is, SCHMELYUN. I've pronounced that probably awfully wrong, awfully incorrectly. But yes, that's the person who's done it. So I'd recommend looking him up. It's really interesting. I'll send you the link for the notes, Ian.
Yeah, that's it. It's a good idea. There's probably a whole range of. Maybe we should have one day a year where everybody decides to finish off their Raspberry Pi projects.
I have got so many.
Yeah, that's my light switch is my light strip, I should say, which I got working for Christmas. I've got to decide to do something with that now. So
what we should do is, I've begun working with a light strip, following your example, and my current unfinished project is I was going to do Network Southeast, the rail system, with all the stations and tracks and things, because you can get information about where trains are at any given time.
Oh yeah.
And so looking at that, and because I thought I could do the London Underground, but that seemed to be too easy. I'd do something that was really hard, and it's turned out to be a lot harder than I expected. Yeah,
it's one of those things that seems a good idea when you start it off, and then you get complicated.
Exactly. Yeah, it was more a case of I hadn't realised just how many position indications there are for where trains are, and so it began to get quite complicated quite quickly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one little Raspberry Pi project I quite liked. I don't know if you've seen this. This is something my friend Bob Bennett did, which is on his I can't remember the title of his series, but he's basically doing a whole series of We Wear Tech. That's what it's called. He basically came up with this idea of subtitling T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
Which basically subtitles live as you speak.
I could use that, definitely. That'd be good.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I'll post the link so Ian can put the link out there.
That's a great idea.
Did we talk, Ian, at all about the person that made Doom work on an RP 2040 as well?
I think you mentioned that, and
yeah, sure I have done.
This is a 2040.
Well, there we go. PK time.
Yeah. So could I get Doom to work on a light strip? I'm not quite sure that's possible, but
I guess if you had enough light strips, you could do. You could, because you've got to reference each one as a pixel. You only need 320 by 240. We'll say only that's only a few thousand.
Well, these light switches, these light strips, I think there's 90 addressable locations with 256 colors.
So okay, you got 256 colors. So if you did 320, if you did 240 rows of 320, you got the pixels. You could have a gigantic wall based
a wall of doom.
A wall of doom.
That's got to be done. That really has got to be done.
I think you should do that. I think it'd be fantastic. Imagine the cables involved.
Yeah, I've got some probably in here. So I've got a little display which is 30 by 30, I think. Well, that's not going to be good enough, is it? So I need a bit higher res on that. And I've got the e-ink display, but that's definitely going to be a bit slow on refreshing on that.
No, I think you need the light cables.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. You'd need, but wouldn't you need? What did you say? 320.
So I mean, I don't know how.
You need 320 light cables.
I mean, how long can each strip be?
Yeah, but this is only 90. So even if you got 90 of these, you're only 90 by 90 pixels.
No,
so
if you found the one that's 320 long, it'd be great.
You could do that, but then you'd need 320 of them, then, wouldn't you?
True.
That's still going to add up to a lot of coding to
you see. Yet again, we've come up with another project that we'll never do.
Yeah, I think that one is definitely doable, but maybe not something you'd knock up in an afternoon, that one. But I do like the idea of a wall of doom. You could be really. I bet someone's already done this kind of thing, like 320 by 320 light bulbs or something like that. It's individual, pixels or light switches or something you could address. But that's the great thing about Upine. That's why I'm kind of sad that Windows 10 IoT on the Raspberry Pi was discontinued, because it was an option for developers to do it in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code even. Mm-hmm. And deploy it, and it was a great way of getting people into into the Microsoft .NET platform, and on a board. I don't know, you can do it in Windows, but it's more fun when you do it on a board like this that's addressable and tinker around with those kind of things. So you've got to use Python or MicroPython or whatever now. So it's kind of a shame that they dropped that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft was I think it's less than 3 years ago, I think that Satya Nadella was saying that the edge and devices was the wave that Microsoft didn't want to miss, and it seems that they don't seem to be as interested as they were. That again, they're more concerned about doing the services behind the scenes rather than supporting the actual devices at the edge.
Yeah, and I think actually that's probably a very good thing for Microsoft to focus on, because they are the back end of choice for most of the IoT solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose is if you make you that's where the money is. That's where the you really need the resources to build an enterprise scalable systems and the Azure backend. So perhaps code for a Windows UI for this is probably not really what they should focus on. It's just a shame, I think, because it was a great way of getting developers started out in these kind of areas.
It is a shame that I think the Windows 10 IoT version isn't on it anymore. Yeah, again, I hadn't realised it had been officially killed, so that did come as a bit of a surprise to me. I thought it was still lingering on in the somewhat confusing strategy that they've had around IoT. Obviously, I guess Azure Sphere or Sphere OS will be the current main thing, but that's also gone very quiet.
Yeah, because there's still Windows 11 IoT, but it's not the same thing, is it now?
No.
It's for it's for endpoint. It's smart. It's it's service type stuff, and it's not.
Yeah,
it's not the same, is it?
I mean, I think rather than sort of forcing everyone to use Microsoft OSs on the edge, Microsoft is perhaps now being clever and saying, well, we'll meet you where you want to be. You'll use our services at the back end, and here's an agent that works on pretty much anything, which you can shove on the front end, and you can then choose to do as much or little processing as you want on the edge. So, and also we're not Amazon, therefore we probably won't eat your breakfast or your lunch.
That's true. So I've just let a look, and there is a Windows 11 IoT, but it's very enterprising and not something that you'll be not something you'll be building your network rail.
No, exactly. No. I was still building mine using Python. Actually, that's what I was doing mine. But it was, and as you say, it's very easy to address those LEDs. But I very quickly ran out of potential data points versus LEDs. It became a case of, okay, well, perhaps I should just do stations as opposed to train movements, or should do junctions. And it got very nerdy very, very quickly. And then I realised I had bitten off way more than I could chew. Yeah,
but a fantastic idea, and it gives you another project to do other than building your Lego.
That's never going to end.
How is the Lego doing now, by the way?
I'm currently rebuilding my external tank and boosters for the Discovery Special, because while trying to assemble it, I had an accident, and I can tell you that Lego and the floor don't really mix too well.
Oh yes, that's definitely not nice.
So yes, it's currently in pieces. I'm putting back together again. I've got to think: do I dare try and put it back on its stand? Because that's how it fell apart last time.
Excellent. So, where can we find you for that? Because I think that's about everything we have for this evening.
Well, I'm normally on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
And Gary, so now you're feeling better. Are you posting back on your EV channel again?
I have, yeah. I've put up I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I've got this adapter for connecting a dash cam to your mirror, which was in a high-end Kia vehicles, which have actually worked incredibly well. It was a little connector plugged into the power lead, which is inside the mirror, and gave me a USB port out the back, so it made connecting dash cams incredibly.
Oh yeah, because I've done a couple now, and you running that cable around and clipping it all around. It took me ages to do that last time. So
and of course, the thing with business contract hire vehicles, you've got to take everything out before you hand them back, so you don't want to route things too difficultly, because you often don't have a time to sort it out when they're going back. So it was good to be able to do something which is very easy to remove and very easy to do. And I've done a video on that, and the video took longer than anybody else would take to install it. It was only sort of like 10 minutes to install it, but I actually did it virtually all one-handed. So it proves how easy it was.
Excellent stuff. Well, I'm at iStixton on Twitter. We should be back on the same time, same place next week with all our usual stories. And you can get in touch with us. You can email me in at thislifestyle.com. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, take care.
Cheerio.